Welcome back to the Lightbulb series by Valkyrie Investments, where we cover crypto topics requested by you in 5 minutes or less.
All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's Lightbulb session. I am here with Ryan Taylor from Dash, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Dash as a cryptocurrency and a blockchain, its utilization, how it came to be, and a bunch of other fun stuff. I'm James O'Brien, Valkyrie COO, and I'm lucky enough to get to do some of these Lightbulb recordings. So Ryan, firstly, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me on the podcast.
Always. So just to kick right into it, tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to join Dash.
Well, I am a person who's always kind of straddled technology and finance in my career through a variety of different roles. Some of the more recent roles before I came to the crypto space was as an associate partner at McKinsey in their financial services practice. I was also a member of their business technology office, so kind of straddling those two worlds. And then I was an analyst at a hedge fund covering the payments and fintech space. So, covering these technology companies from a financial standpoint within the financial industry. So I've always kind of straddled this world. And I started to hear about this thing, Bitcoin, back in 2012. And I heard the name come up quite a few times in literature and things that I was researching. And so I decided to look into it. And fascinating technology. It's frankly not that good as a payment technology. Looking at it purely from the lens of a payments expert, I could identify that this thing had really unique attributes, but some serious flaws as well. And I did start looking around the space at the time when I realized there were all these other altcoins that were forming at that time, and really was attracted to Dash because it was one of the only projects that was really focusing on anything externally facing towards the customer. A lot of other projects were dealing with different mining algorithms or complex economics or something else about them. But this was the only project I found that was really attempting to take Bitcoin and improve it from a payments standpoint. And so I started to get more and more involved, and at some point I made the crazy decision to leave a hedge fund job to join a crypto project, basically as a volunteer, and everyone said I was crazy for doing it. So, what I bring to this space is that payments technology lens and, recognition of the improvements that need to take place to cryptocurrency to make it usable for average people and relevant for various payments use cases.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's funny. I'm sure it's a term that you've heard. We have the people talk about the DeFi mullet a lot, right? Which is like an attractive UI in the front and very complicated guts in the back. And I fully agree with you. I think now, we're probably talking. When did you join Dash?
Full time in 2016.
Okay, yeah. So you were onto that, that mullet trend, so to speak, way back when you saw that there was a whole bunch of incredible technology being built in the space, but it didn't have great accessibility, right? It didn't have great user-facing functionality. It certainly didn't have great business-to-business facing functionality. And it was all predicated on incredible technology and incredible thought leadership, but all of it kind of a little bit too nuanced for most people to understand, and certainly too complicated for them to actually access. So yeah. I think, does that make you, that might make you the first to the mullet?
Maybe.
Well, only time will tell. And then I think a cool segue from there is obviously you just shared a little bit about Dash and its technology, but what is Dash?
So Dash is a payments-focused cryptocurrency. It is a fork of Bitcoin's code. So it is Bitcoin-based. It shares much of the same DNA as Bitcoin, but it's been optimized for the payments use case. And what that means is we've made a number of optimizations to make it faster, more scalable, cheaper to use, and a better user experience, meaning nearly instant transactions that are spendable by the recipient within about 1.5 seconds. And so that makes it very useful in use cases and environments that Bitcoin is not. Things like the point of sale, where most transactions still occur. Most transactions still occur at a counter, at a checkout, or require that type of speed in order to settle quickly or give the merchant assurances that they're actually going to receive those funds. And so by optimizing for the payments use case, we've just developed a set of technologies that make it a much more reliable, fast, scalable network.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. I've done a fair bit in payments and financial movement infrastructure in the past as well. And I think one thing that, you know, most people, even very often businesses who accept credit cards, right, don't understand is that settlement is not instantaneous. And it's really, and your ability, at least in the past before companies like Stripe and others came along, like your ability to actually accept credit card payments was very much based off of the credit history of those spending at your store, spending in your business, and then whether or not those went through, whether or not they had to be refunded, right? There was essentially a credit score and a big underwriting process specifically about your accounts payable systems, right? And now a lot of that has been abstracted away by large payments amalgamators like Stripe. But I fully agree with you that that's a problem that even to this day, although it appears a little bit more accessible and friendly to the retail public and the retail business public, it's still something that's a lot more nuanced and problematic than most people think. So you just went through this a little bit, but just to really put a point on it, if you had to say, you know, and I'll ask it in two ways. If you had to say that there were 3 problems with Bitcoin or other existing technologies when you joined Dash or when Dash was founded, what were those, say, 3 major pain points that Dash was aiming to solve?
Well, the first is the speed and scalability of the transactions, which I kind of lump into a user experience bucket. It isn't a great payment experience for you to have to be the one to pay the fee to send the funds, and B, if that transaction time is uncertain and takes a long time. And at times of network congestion, it can take a long time for many of these cryptocurrencies to function. This isn't exclusive to Bitcoin as a problem. Most cryptocurrencies that are based on Bitcoin or any type of confirmation model, those confirmation times are uncertain. So the amount of time between blocks that these transactions confirm in is uncertain. And so what we did is we developed a set of technologies that gave certainty over the transaction and also enabled the network to scale. And by solving those 2 issues, you simultaneously solve the fee problem because the fees become meaningless. If it's highly scalable and the transaction you're not competing for space in a blockchain in order to confirm a transaction, that means that fees become much less of an issue. And on Dash's network, I think the average fee is about 0.05 of a cent for an average transaction. And so you can see very quickly why that just isn't a meaningful number for almost any use case, at least any that we're likely to encounter in our day-to-day lives. And so, you know, that's one set of issues that Dash has solved. I'd say the second is just user interface. It's scary for first-time users to see a long cryptographic address. It's not intuitive. They have to actually coordinate that address outside of the network. Oh, well, how do I know my email wasn't subject to a man-in-the-middle attack and changed by some hacker? I now have to make a phone call to the person to say, are you sure this is the right address? Can I send a test transaction? Whatever the case may be. These are all usability issues. And there wasn't a lot of thought put into the, you know, original cryptocurrencies or the old school cryptocurrencies. We are in the process of solving this with something called Platform. It's a data layer to our network, and it allows for many different use cases that we'll probably get into later in the call. But one of them, and the impetus for us to create this decentralized database, essentially, is so that users can leverage data contracts. It's a new concept that we're rolling out. And the way that data contracts can be useful in this case is I can create a username. That username is stored in the network. I can then send a friend request to James through the network. James can accept it, and now I can send a transaction to James. And you can see that it came from me and not some weird cryptographic address you don't recognize.
Yeah.
And so it's taking the experience that we all have with Venmo or Cash App or whatever, and bringing that to the cryptocurrency space, and not doing it through some centralized service, not doing it through, hey, here's my Coinbase address, or here's an address that I created on this web interface that you can use. This is native to the blockchain itself. And what that means is it doesn't matter what device you're accessing the network through. You'll be able to see the same information on your tablet as your desktop, as your mobile wallet. And it'll just act and look and feel like an account that you're used to having, but without all the downsides of a centralized entity holding your funds. And so this is another set of usability issues, and just making this more relevant and recognizable to the users that we've been working on for a long time. And it's on our doorstep at this point. We've done 22 releases so far, and release 23 is the version that we're going to go to mainnet with this. So that gives you an idea of how close we are at this point to having this functionality. And then the third and final one, I'd say that it is the move away from the payments use case. We've seen the narrative change to, well, digital gold. And I think that stems from a recognition that this isn't a great payment technology. And Litecoin has moved to digital silver, et cetera. That's a move away from the original intent that cryptocurrency had, which was for us to use it as peer-to-peer money. And I will still believe in that use case. I think that use case is every bit possible. You just need to present the users with a user experience that they're going to find refreshing and familiar.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I for one am very grateful that we live in a world where traditional money remittance or money sending services, whether it be a traditional wire or ACH or something where you actually have to go into a physical storefront, right, to send money to your relatives in another country, those used to be standard, right, and certainly they're still standard in terms of of majority usability, like across the globe, right. But I think for the first time, maybe not the first time, but at least it's happening more and more, thankfully, and in large part thanks to crypto and blockchain, is that people are saying, hey, why am I spending $55 to send $1,000? Yeah. Why do I have to go to a third-party money transmitter so that they can take 5% of it when I send it, once every 2 weeks to my family in a different country?
Competition and choice is essential for markets to improve. And this is the first time in probably 1.5 centuries that we all have a choice about what currency we choose to use. Back in the 1800s, early 1800s, other currencies like the Spanish dollar circulated regularly, and you really did have a choice. And that era kind of went away for a long time, but I think that era is returning. I know people that live off of crypto, and I know people that have largely moved away from fiat as far as their day-to-day usage, but it does have to be usable. And I think that's the issue that we've really been trying to focus on and solve. Now, in the process of doing all of this, we've introduced a set of technologies that does not exist in the crypto space today. We had to build them. And we can get into it a little bit later, but I like to say that we're all trying to pursue this concept of Web 3.0, where most projects are kind of Web 2.5. They're partially decentralized, but we tend to access them through centralized services. The fully validated version of those services aren't going to work on a device like this because they're too heavy in terms of bandwidth, in terms of compute power, in terms of storage that's required on the device to fully access these decentralized networks without trusting some website to deliver you, your NFT or whatever the case may be, as is. And I've seen projects that have, I saw one guy created an NFT that actually displays different photos depending on which web interface you access the network through, just to illustrate the point that this is not Web 3.0 yet. And what we've developed is truly Web 3.0. It is a queryable database that is accessible on devices like this, and not just accessible, but cryptographically provable and testable by the device, that the data hasn't been altered, that the data hasn't been omitted from your query. All of that is provable at this point. And it's the first instance of true Web 3.0 that I think exists in the market. And so we're kind of on the verge of rolling something major out that I don't think the market appreciates what we've built yet.
Well, hopefully our session can help them get there a little bit faster. And then on the point of the technology that you guys have built, on these sessions and recordings, and then also just in the greater crypto sphere, we talk a lot, obviously, about different consensus mechanisms, proof of work, proof of stake. Can you tell us a little bit more about Dash's consensus model as well as its tokenomics?
Yeah, so Dash's consensus model is kind of a hybrid between proof of work and proof of stake. It is a proof of work chain. That means that all of the blocks in the blockchain are produced by miners, just like they would be in Bitcoin or Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash or any of the other similar networks as Dash. However, in those networks, that's the only step, is the mining of the transactions into a block. And at that point, the block propagates around the network, and the only way you can be sure you're on the right chain tip is to wait. Make sure that there aren't chain tips you aren't aware of, that your node is connected to. Dash has a different process, and it continues after the block is mined. The next step is that we have special class of nodes or servers in our network called master nodes. Anyone can run a full node on Dash's network by downloading the software and running a full node, just like they can with Bitcoin. But what master nodes are, they're a little bit different, because in order to upgrade my node to a master node, I have to prove ownership over 1,000 Dash. Now that's, at current prices, about $93,000 worth. And what that does is it prevents any one person from controlling the majority of that network. There's around 5,000 master nodes, and each of them is collateralized by this Dash that is associated to that node. What that does is it ensures that that layer of the network is widely held by many different individuals. And what you can do with that network is really powerful. Because there is a cost of entry to that class of nodes, and we know that they're widely held, we can use those as a polling mechanism, basically. And so these master nodes form groups called quorums, and they're constantly forming and dissolving and forming and dissolving for different purposes on the network. But basically, when a block is published, those master nodes, 400 of them, are randomly but deterministically selected to vote on that block. Is this a valid block? Is this the longest chain that we all see? Not what my one node sees, but what the entire network sees. And they sign a message amongst all of them, or a threshold of them. When the supermajority of them agree that this is the right block for this block height, they publish a message to the network. And now the entire network can see we are in consensus. You don't have to wait for 6 block confirmations or whatever. You get consensus immediately. And the network, this whole process takes about 4 seconds when a block is published. How this plays into proof of stake is those master nodes are paid. The miners don't get to collect the entire transaction fees and the entirety of the block reward themselves, they have to distribute a portion of it to the master nodes as they mine. And so master nodes, although they're locking up 1,000 Dash in the master node for a period of time, they're getting paid by the network for providing this infrastructure and providing these services. And so in that regard, it feels a lot like proof of stake. I'm investing a certain amount in the network and the network is paying me. But they're actually paying for those services that you're creating on the network and the validation steps. There are other functions that they provide. They provide governance. They provide what we call instant send locks. These behave much the same way, but on a transaction level. So each transaction goes through these processes and gets locked on the network so that no double spends are possible. No 51% attacks that you hear about on some of these other networks where exchanges get attacked or whatever. Those things aren't possible on Dash's network. So it's just greater security, quicker. It's faster transactions times. It is more certainty for the user over the time it takes for these processes to take, and it's just a better user experience. And by the way, because these master nodes are paid, they're incentivized to run in high availability, high speed data centers to ensure they never go down. And so unlike volunteer networks where you volunteer to run a full node, those are slow. The messages propagate around the network very slowly. This is just, it's incredibly fast.
Thank you. Yeah, and on the topic of user experience and utilization, I know we've teased a lot around the corners of Dash's use cases and things that are being built on the network, and really how it's taking hold in the quote unquote real world. Can you tell us a little bit more about how the Dash blockchain is currently utilized, and then also what's in store for the future?
Yeah. So because Dash settles instantly and is very low cost, it does particularly well in economies where this is truly needed, right? Here in the US, we don't need these payment technologies. Our payment system works pretty good, right? It's reliable. It doesn't cost that much. Our currency is stable. Well, this last year, maybe not so much, but
more so than many other countries.
More so than most of the world.
Yeah.
And what we found is that in Latin America in particular, we have the greatest need and the greatest fit. And those markets have done particularly well. In certain markets like Venezuela, Dash is more used than Bitcoin is, more used than Litecoin, more used than Tether. It is more used than any other cryptocurrency in Venezuela. And it's accepted at major retailers. Their largest department store chain, Traki, accepts it. Church's Chicken, Burger King. There's thousands actually of locations in Venezuela that accept it. But it's not exclusively Venezuela. We have merchant adoption in places like El Salvador right alongside Bitcoin. And in many of these locations, Dash is widely used. We do have a big footprint in Brazil as well. And it's accepted around 1.4 million locations through the BitFi app in Brazil. That's a recent partnership that we signed. So those are the types of everyday use cases. Here in the United States is one of our most exciting projects. It's called Dash Direct. And Dash Direct is it's a savings application, and it has around 300 brands in it. We have around 160,000 merchant locations in the US that are accepting Dash today, and they're giving the users about a 5% discount on average. It goes up to 12%, but average is probably in the 4 to 5% range. I personally average about 5.1% on my purchases. And so it's competitive with credit cards. Not only competitive, but it's a better value proposition than credit cards. We launched it in Q3 of last year, and it's been very popular. The publisher of the app is a company called Ionia, and the Dash Investment Foundation is partial owner of that company. And they have a credit card version of this app. The Dash version, the Dash user is about 40 to 45 times more loyal to the app than someone who pays with a credit card. And part of the reason for that is the savings are better. There's no credit card fee for Ionia to pay for. And so all of those savings can get passed along to the consumer. And so it really is a great showcase application. It's major brands like all the Gap brands like Banana Republic and Old Navy and all of them are in there. Express, Subway, Chipotle, Home Depot. There's 300 major brands across the US that you can spend your crypto today and earn a discount for doing it. And it's stackable savings. You can also use coupons and loyalty programs and anything else the retailer is offering you and get an extra 5%. And so it's a pretty good deal. And we're getting some loyal users on that platform. So it's use cases like this where we're providing that switching incentive. For Latin Americans, it just works, and that's good enough, right? Like that's enough to make the switch because a lot of their payment networks don't work at all or aren't reliable or are very high cost. Here in the US, we have a different problem to solve, and it's around providing those switching incentives that credit cards are so sticky for US user. We don't even think about it, right? We just pull out the credit card here in the US. But
I mean, I think a general cultural moray in the U.S. right is like somebody's not going to switch their entrenched activity unless you give them an incentive to do so.
Exactly. Well, this is true of payments use cases globally. There are certain markets like Brazil where people do have to think about how they pay every single time because there's so many payment types and they aren't all everywhere. But here in the U.S., it's Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and maybe Discover, right? And that's pretty much it. If you want to pay any other way, you got to ask, hey, do you take cash? Can you break this? Can whatever? Like most of us just reach for our credit cards or debit cards. And so, that isn't the case everywhere. But here in the US, you really do need that switching incentive to wean people off of the credit cards.
Here I am dreaming of the future, Ryan, when I'm thinking, so many businesses, not so many, I guess, but even down here in Nashville, I can name a few that are still cash only businesses. I foresee a time in the future when we have dash only businesses.
That would be amazing.
Fingers crossed all around. So a little bit more on Dash Direct too, before we start to wrap up. Can you tell us a little bit more about the interface or the app or something of that nature, how both individuals are using Dash Direct to pay as well as how merchants are accepting those payments? And a small tack on question too is, do you guys ever foresee a time in the future when you try to tie this to a card-based payment mechanism just to bring on more users and more adoption?
Okay, so I'll start with the first question, which is, what is it like to use? And what does that interface look like? I'll just show it to you.
That's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, so I have Dash Direct here on my phone, and you can see near my location, these are some of the brands that are nearby me. I've got Papa John's, Domino's, Subway, CVS, Chipotle. So if I select a retailer like CVS, I can see what my savings will be here. It's 3.5% at CVS. And
just a quick question, is that kind of a B2B deal that you guys have struck with those merchants directly?
So the way that the system actually works is through their native gift card platform, whatever platform that is. And what you're essentially doing is buying an instant gift card that is displayed on your phone. And I'll show you what it looks like. And you're buying it in the exact amount of your purchase. You're not buying a gift card ahead of time that you can then go and swipe and try and keep track of the balance like a lot of these crypto gift card options. It's instant issuance in the exact amount. Amazing. And all you have to tell the cashier is, I'm paying with a digital gift card. And I'll show you how they actually accept it. The great thing for the merchant is, now I don't need to train anybody. They already know how to accept a digital gift card through our digital gift card program that we already have. And so it's very easy to sign the merchants up for a value proposition like that, where we're going to bring them loyal customers. And so the reason I shop at CVS and not Walgreens is CVS is in the app. And so for them, it's more of a marketing affiliate program. And that is why they offer discounts, is to be prominent in the app and incentivize users to use them instead of their competitors. So in this case, let's say that my total came to $10.17. I just enter the amount, I hit next, and it says, great, you're only going to pay $9.81. There's your savings. I hit the purchase gift card button. It actually pulls up my wallet, pre-populates the transaction. This is my Dash wallet. If I wanted to purchase this gift card, I would hit send, but I'm not going to do that because I obviously don't actually want.
You don't know if you're going to CVS today.
I wasn't planning on it. So, but what I can do is show you what it ends up showing you. It ends up showing you this, and you just hold it up, and the cashier goes beep, and you're done. You've now saved money. You spent your crypto directly without incurring any exchange fees or anything that you would normally incur, without any delay, and while custodying your own funds. The important part here is the Ionia company didn't have my cryptocurrency until I hit the send button. Most of these programs require you to top up your gift card or your debit card, prepaid debit card, ahead of time, hours ahead of time, to be sure that you can actually spend it. This is, I keep my balance in my own possession until the moment I'm ready to spend it. And this only works with Dash because we have instant transactions. Ionia is taking no risk that that transaction does not go through. And so it happens every bit as fast as a credit card authorization. It's not embarrassing to be paying with crypto at the point of sale while you're dealing with some goofy web interface or something like that. It just works directly through the app. It switches seamlessly between the two applications you need, Dash Direct and then the wallet to send it, and back to Dash Direct almost instantly. It just works. And that's why it gets really good reviews on the App Store and why people love to use it. And that is the type of user experience you need to provide in order for people to want to switch. It has to be every bit as easy to use as a credit card. Now, to answer the second question, do we plan on having a card available? Yes, we are launching a Dash card. It is a MasterCard. It will work anywhere MasterCard is accepted, and it will work in the exact same way that I just showed you. I do not need to top up that prepaid card ahead of time because it's not a prepaid card. It is actually a credit card, and at the time that I'm ready to make the purchase, I go in my app, I enter the amount, I pay it, and the card is usable. At that point, I can scan it, tap to pay, whatever I'm going to do. And there is a physical card available for those who prefer to have a physical card. But if they accept, tap to pay, Apple Pay, or whatever, it would work.
That's amazing. I mean, I could not agree more with you, frankly, in terms of usability being the most important thing that we're facing in crypto right now. And it's, I think we've heard a lot about it in articles and podcasts over the years, but over the past, honestly, even month or so, I feel like I've had more conversations with deep technical people with deep technical expertise who have begrudgingly come to admit where they're like, look, I got into this for the tech and I'm still here for the tech. But one thing I have to admit is that technology doesn't drive adoption, usability, and to an extent, marketing, right? Expansion within your user base, right? Like that's what really drives adoption in a real world use case.
And I knew that this was the right solution when it launched because it launched on a Monday. And on Tuesday, my dad called me and, he's in his 70s and he says, hey, how can you walk me through this? How do I download this thing? How do I get it set up? And I said, Dad, I am really busy. This is a busy week for me. Can it wait until Saturday? Maybe I'll coach you through it over the phone, or I'll come over, or whatever the case may be. And Wednesday at lunch, I got a phone call. I just bought a Subway sandwich. He
He
was so
figured it out on his
excited.
own.
He figured it out on his own, and it wasn't hard. He was just able to do it. And when my 70-something-year-old dad can figure it out without any help, that's the type of usability we need. And that's the bar we should all be aiming for as an industry. And I think a lot of solutions are a long way from it. I think there are major improvements we can make to Dash, and we have a roadmap of those. And but I really sincerely believe Dash has probably the widest acceptance network at this point in the United States, perhaps globally, just off of the US footprint alone, but certainly with all of our Latin American locations that take it. And it's got the most usable interface and most usable, reliable network that exists for this payment use case. And we're getting real adoption in some of these places. And that includes users in the US, which I thought would be the last to adopt crypto. But we're finding that there's a real appetite out there to do it. There's one other thing you touched on that I want to comment on. There's a lot of payments companies that are now incorporating crypto into their networks. We went to Money 2020 every year for like the last 4 years. This is a major money tech conference.
Yeah, I've been a few times myself.
Yeah, so I've been going for years, since like 2013 or something like that. And I've been going on behalf of Dash since 2017. And I have to say, like, 2017 was, what is crypto? What's Bitcoin? 2018 was, okay, I think I understand what Bitcoin is, but tell me about Dash. Tell me what makes it different. 2019 was, yeah, we've looked at crypto. It's never going to happen. We've evaluated it and nothing's going to happen. 2020 was canceled because of COVID. But this last year, it was in October, all the payment companies had major teams, real strategies. They knew what they were going to do. They knew the economic value of doing it. They're pursuing major, like the largest payment companies in the world are now pursuing real crypto projects for payments. And this is the moment that Dash has been waiting for, honestly.
Amazing. I don't think I could do a better sign off than that. So Ryan, unless you have anything else that you'd love to tell everybody, I think that's a wrap.
All right, perfect. Well, I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about my favorite thing.
No, and it's apparent, like it's so incredibly apparent when you talk with an incredible amount of passion. And again, it's such a I spend all day every day talking to protocols, right? And for me it's such an incredible conversation when you're not talking about all of the dreams and use cases that we can possibly see in the future once adoption catches up, right? But to actually talk about something that is downloadable, usable, and contributory to your life on a day-to-day basis right now. Like that's just a very unique thing in the space in a lot of cases, especially when it comes to a real world application like payments.
Well, if I can actually close with complimenting Valkyrie. Valkyrie, of course, launched the Dash Trust and has been a great partner in doing that. There are many ways you can stake Dash, but I think Valkyrie offers a really unique value proposition in terms of, just doing all the heavy lifting for the user, being able to, run the nodes on behalf of the fund, and then also, do things like generate the tax statements and all these things that are a real difficult thing to do if you're trying to do this on your own. And so Valkyrie brings something to the Dash network that I think is really valuable. And you guys are obviously doing a great job with the rollout of the ETFs and everything else that you're doing for the space. So Valkyrie is a great partner, and we're proud to work with you guys on whatever fronts we can.
Thank you, Ryan. We really, really appreciate that. And, I think although it looks a little bit differently, with us being an asset manager versus a blockchain tech company, again, accessibility is the number one goal, right? Accessibility and regulatory compliance to make sure that we're rolling out products that make sense with amazing partners, so that we can give people exposure to crypto, and, the future of hopeful wealth generation, right? So
Perfect.
really appreciate that. And I know we have a long road of partnership ahead. So it's really wonderful to sit down and chat with you. Thank you for sharing everything. Again, everybody, Ryan Taylor from Dash. I'm James O'Brien from Valkyrie. And this has been a light bulb session. Thank y'all.
Thanks for joining us today. If you want to learn more about something in the crypto sphere, please reach out to us at lightbulb@valkyrieinvest.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Disclosures. The opinions presented herein are solely of the individual and not necessarily representative of Valkyrie Investments Inc. and their affiliates. There is no guarantee that any specific outcome will be achieved. Investments may be speculative, illiquid, and there is a risk of total loss of your investment. Past performance is not indicative of future results.